Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of the Nutty Libertarian. Coming up, I do what you probably will not do, and that is conduct my own independent research on both the likely presidential candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Now, since I am not confident in the American electorate's ability or desire to vet candidates apart from CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and NBC, also known as the mainstream media, I will do it for you. So buckle up and put on your thinking caps because this is information you can't cast an informed vote without.
Okay, everyone, before I get into the meat of this episode and do the analysis, just a quick note. I tried to figure out what the most important problem is that is on the mind of the voter during this election. And luckily, the Gallup organization has a poll that asks just that. It says, what do you think is the most important problem facing this country today? And you can see that poll is open-ended, so it is ongoing. And from February 3rd to the 7th, 2016, this year, what is on your mind as a voter is the economy and all these other associated economic issues. What is not on your mind is a lot of this stuff comparatively to the economy. This stuff, while it might be important to you, is not going to be covered in this episode. So without further ado, because the economy is on most voters' minds, let's get into it. Okay, so here is Hillary Clinton's economic plan, which you can find for yourself at her 2016 campaign website. As you can see, it's called A Plan to Raise American Incomes. That's pretty much a Democratic talking point. They like to say that they're for the middle class, so it's no surprise that she has titled her economic plan as a plan to raise American incomes. Judge for yourself whether or not you think her plan will accomplish that. So, moving on. Create good paying jobs and get pay rising by investing in infrastructure, clean energy, and scientific and medical research. So I highlighted this word investing because the way she uses the word versus the way you use the word are probably two different things. When Hillary Clinton says investing, she's not talking about investing her money. She's not talking about investing some private organization's money. She's talking about investing your money, your tax dollars. She wants you to buy the infrastructure, the clean energy, the scientific and medical research. So keep that in mind. Every time she uses the word investing, she means your money. She also wants to tax the rich more, just like her competitor, Bernie Sanders. Moving on, again, she repeated herself on this strong growth point. She wants to invest in the same three things: infrastructure, clean energy, and scientific and medical research. So she believes that using your money to invest in those things will create jobs. Coming down here to unleashing small business growth. Hillary's father owned a small business, and she understands that small businesses are the backbone of jobs and growth in America. So she has this small business agenda, which if you own a small business or are considering buying one or starting one, I definitely recommend you check out. She has some programs laid out to give you better access to capital, to provide you tax relief, cut red tape. So I'm kind of skeptical after looking at it. I'm not certain that the plan she laid out will accomplish those things the way she thinks they will, but definitely feel free to navigate there and check it out for yourself. But down here under Create New College Compact, this I think is a key point. And once again, we see this word invest. So what does it say? Hillary's new college compact will invest or spend your money, will spend your $350 billion so that students do not have to borrow to pay tuition. So this is just like Bernie Sanders' free tuition for all plan. So she wants you to pay tuition for college kids. So if you are okay with that, then Hillary is probably your candidate. If not, then you might want to look elsewhere. But do you think the role of government should be to provide free tuition to public colleges? Or do you think the role of government should be more limited than that? So, moving on. Raising the minimum wage and strengthening overtime rules. So Hillary believes we are long overdue in raising the minimum wage. This is an issue if you currently own a business and have employees. If you have a Hillary Clinton as president, your labor costs will probably be going up because she wants to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour. So just keep that in mind, you entrepreneurs and you business owners. She also, again, wants to tax the rich. So there's a few more details on here, but that is pretty much, and I say unfortunately, pretty much unfortunately, all she details. To sum it up, she wants to tax the wealthy more. She wants to raise minimum wage, and she wants to invest your money or spend your money on infrastructure, clean energy, scientific and medical research, and free college tuition for all students. So keep that in mind. Next up is Donald Trump. All right, so here we are at Donald Trump's economic plan, which you can find for yourself at Donald Trump's campaign website. His plan is divided into two sections. First, he has a section on U.S.-China trade relations and another section on domestic tax reform. Let's get into the China stuff real quick before we get into the domestic tax reform stuff. So Donald Trump is very negative on our relationship with China, and he wants to bring them back to the negotiating table and redo the deal entirely. He's not a fan of China's involvement in the World Trade Organization. He doesn't think that's good for the U.S., and he wants to declare China a currency manipulator in an effort to bring them back to the negotiating table. The whole currency manipulation thing seems a bit hypocritical to me because the United States is the biggest currency manipulator of them all. You know, we manipulate the dollar, every which way to Sunday constantly. So for us to point a finger at China and say, you are a currency manipulator, that would be like pointing your finger at the sky and saying that it's blue. It's obvious. The U.S. is a currency manipulator, and it's obvious that China is. So I don't think, the currency manipulation thing moves a lot of people's needles very much. It doesn't move my needle at all. Protect American ingenuity and investment by forcing China to uphold intellectual property laws and stop their unfair and unlawful practice of forcing U.S. companies to share proprietary technology with Chinese competitors as a condition of entry to China's market. That is a mouthful. I wasn't aware of this myself. I wasn't aware that if you are a U.S. company and you want to enter the China market, you have to fork over all your private technology and hand over all your ideas to your China competitor just to get entry into their market. Now, you'd think that they would have to reciprocate that when Chinese companies want to do business with Americans, right? Wrong. That is not the case. China does not have to reciprocate that at all. So I totally understand why Trump thinks that our current relationship with China is not fair trade, much less free trade. But what a deal if you're China, right? What a deal if you're China. So now he says he wants to reclaim millions of American jobs and revive American manufacturing by putting an end to China's illegal export subsidies, lax labor standards, and environmental standards. So again, Donald Trump is running for U.S. president. And if he's elected, and that's a big if at this point, but if he's elected, what type of influence does he think he will directly have over China labor standards and over China environmental standards and over China export subsidies? He's not president of China at that point. He's president of the United States. Now, there are certainly ways he can pressure China to do that. True. I won't get into those here, but to just say that he's going to fix China's problems with labor standards and environmental standards, I think, is a bit unwarranted at this point because he will be the American president, not the president of China. Strengthening our negotiating position by lowering our corporate tax rate to keep American companies and jobs here at home, attacking our debt and deficit so China cannot use financial blackmail against us, and bolstering the U.S. military presence in the East and South China Seas to discourage Chinese adventurism. Wow, that's a mouthful there. Okay, so first of all, on this corporate tax rate point, let's scroll down a little bit. So here we see he wants to lower the corporate tax rate to 15%. Now, our current corporate tax rate is at 35%. China's corporate tax rate is at 25%. So he wants to cut us 10% below China as an incentive for U.S. companies to remain within U.S. shores and to bring companies that have left back to the United States. I think that's a smart thing. If we tell all these companies, hey, you can pay less money, which was their primary incentive for moving in the first place because they were being overtaxed. If we do away with that problem, they are certainly more likely to consider resuming their business in the United States. I get that. I'm with Donald Trump on that point. And then he mentioned attacking the debt. Now, this is a departure from what Hillary Clinton says. Hillary Clinton doesn't want to attack the debt at all. She doesn't even mention it. But to Donald Trump, who we can all agree he's a shrewd negotiator. If you've ever read The Art of the Deal, I mean, it is quite a book, and I recommend that you read it. But leverage is a big deal in negotiations, and he feels that China, having so much of our treasury bonds, that at any given time they could just cash in these treasury bonds and crash our economy. He feels like that's way too much leverage in the hands of our fiercest trading partner. So he doesn't want the Chinese to have that leverage anymore. So he really wants to attack the debt and remove that leverage from them. Again, that makes sense to me. It makes financial sense to me. And I think that makes a lot of sense to most Americans. They see that $18 trillion number, and a lot of that debt has been collected in the last 15 years. We've run up that debt. So our debt is clearly out of control, and Trump wants to remove that leverage from the Chinese, and I am with him on that point there. Okay, so here we are at Donald Trump's tax reform plan. Now, you can find this information on Donald Trump's website. I do want to run through a couple key points below that I think voters probably should know about before we hit the ballot in November. And this is assuming, and this is a big assumption at this point, that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. Turns out the Republican Party might pull some shenanigans to try and take it away from Trump. And if they're successful, then all this is a moot point. But nonetheless, right now, it looks like Donald Trump is the only one in position to clinch the nomination. So his tax plan says that he primarily wants tax relief for middle-class Americans. So, okay, I think middle-class Americans are on board with that, myself included. I feel like I pay too much in taxes. He wants to simplify the tax code. So I've felt like this for a long time. Last I checked, we had over a 10,000 page tax code, I believe. Does it really need to be 10,000 pages long? Can we not simplify it a little bit? Okay, I'm on board with that. Grow the American economy by discouraging corporate inversions. Well, there's a new word that I bet a lot of folks haven't heard about before. What is a corporate inversion? Well, whenever I have a financial question, I like to go to the Investopedia, and I found the definition there. And you can see, corporate inversion is one of many strategies companies employ to reduce their tax burden. One way that a company can reincorporate abroad is by having a foreign company buy its current operations. Assets are then owned by the foreign company, and the old company is dissolved. Okay. So, reading merger acquisition news all the time like I do, I see a lot of inversions happen all the time, and it is a tax evasion strategy, right? So it is a way that companies can relocate their assets offshore fairly quickly and not have to pay their tax burden. So Donald Trump wants to end corporate inversions. So to do that, he's going to have to make the tax environment here favorable. Because as we covered in the last part of Trump's plan, having a 35% corporate tax rate encourages companies to leave. So if he wants to end corporate inversions, well, he's also going to have to incentivize companies to come back. Now, the Democrats want to make corporate inversions illegal, and Trump covers that in this a little bit. He says that corporate inversions should be discouraged, not illegal. So let's move on a little bit, and that will become clear. If you are single and earn less than $25,000, or married and jointly earn less than $50,000, you will not owe any income tax. Wow, where was this plan when I was at this meager income level? Where was it? I really could have used it, and I know a whole lot of my friends and family, and a lot of you listening would really enjoy having a zero tax bill at the end of the year. Wouldn't that be nice? Great. All other Americans get a simpler tax code. Huzzah! With 4 brackets, 0%, 10%, 20%, and 25% instead of the current 7 tax brackets. This new code eliminates the marriage penalty and the AMT, the alternative minimum tax, while providing the lowest tax rate since before World War II. Again, I am all in favor of lower taxes. Now, it's important to note that Hillary Clinton looks to be extending tax credits rather than lowering taxes straight up. And if you have to decide between the two strategies, if you have to decide between getting more tax credits versus lowering taxes from the get-go, I am always in favor of lowering taxes from the get-go. So I'm with Donald Trump on that. No business of any size, from a Fortune 500 mom and pop shop to a freelancer living job to job, will pay more than 15% of their business income in taxes. What a boon to small business and entrepreneurs, right? Let alone giant companies. So tax burdens on small companies are often crippling, and it discourages entrepreneurship. I think we need entrepreneurship to once again become a world superpower. I think we need a lot more entrepreneurship. So I am with Donald Trump on this. Reducing or eliminating the most deductions and loopholes available to the very rich. Well, hey, look, this is similar to Hillary, and I noted that here. Hillary wants to tax the rich more also. So the two of them agree on that, which is interesting because Trump has a reputation of being for big business and whatnot. Well, here he's straight up saying eliminate most deductions for the very rich. So make sure you understand that next time you see a news story or a bunch of protesters talking about how Trump is just, for big business. A one-time deemed repatriation of corporate cash held overseas at a significantly discounted 10% tax rate, followed by an end to the deferral of taxes on corporate income earned abroad. So if companies went through one of those inversions like we talked about before and relocated all their assets overseas, well, if we lower our corporate tax rate to 15%, companies are going to want to move back. And if they want to move back, they can bring back all that money that they took out of the United States for only a 10% tax rate versus the much higher taxes that they would have to pay to bring that cash back now. So Trump would actually be incentivizing companies to bring their money back rather than incentivizing them to leave like our current system does. So, reducing or eliminating corporate loopholes that cater to special interests, as well as deductions made unnecessary or redundant by the new lower tax rate on corporations and business income. We will also phase in a reasonable cap on the deductibility of business interest expenses. Donald Trump is always trying to make things more friendly for business. That's true. And I think that's why he gets this reputation of just being a big businessman and being heartless to everybody else. But Trump understands that the economy is the biggest issue. Just like that Gallup poll showed at the beginning of this video, the economy is what matters to voters right now. And if adding all these extra deductions and lowering corporate tax rates are going to bring business back, I'm all for that as well. So, moving on. This says too many companies, from great American brands to innovative startups, are leaving America through corporate inversion. So we talked about this. America will compete with the world and win by cutting the corporate tax rate to 15%, taking our rate from one of the worst to one of the best. I think this is needed to happen for a long time. And I know I've mentioned cutting the tax rate from 35 to 15% a lot, but it bears repeating once again because that would bring back all of these companies that have left overseas. It might bring back. There's no guarantee. But we would once again be providing the environment for companies to thrive because we're not providing that environment now. So I'm with Donald Trump on that. So that is essentially Donald Trump's tax plan. Essentially, to summarize, he wants to increase after-tax wages for the middle class. Great. He wants to change our graduated income tax rates to 0%, 10%, 20%, and 25% rather than the 7 different brackets we have now. He wants to tax the rich more. He wants to bring back money from overseas, and he talked about how he can do that, and he wants to stop corporate inversions. He doesn't want to outlaw them because he thinks that would send the wrong message. Rather, he wants to make the environment such that companies wouldn't consider doing an inversion. They would much rather keep their business here because of our favorable tax and business environment. So this is Donald Trump's plan.
So thanks again for tuning in. I hope you found my analysis helpful. If so, feel free to share it in all your social media circles. And if you didn't find it helpful, share it all the same and send me hate mail at nuttylibertarian@gmail.com. Don't forget to press that subscribe button and check me out on Twitter at @PushForLiberty. Until next time, don't forget that the more we push for liberty, the more we preserve the Republic.